the pressure who no book. If you not have no education, people treat you like a book.
Welcome back to another tutorial in this COVID-19 pandemic season. Parents, thank you very much for the work that you're doing at home. As teachers, we're very, very grateful. We are proud of you. Thank you very much. In today's lesson, I'm going to be continuing on the series that we've been doing on fractions. Today, we're going to be looking at multiplying fractions. So in today's lesson, we're going to be looking at multiplying fractions. What I want you to remember or to take with you in doing multiplying fraction is how to change mixed numbers into improper fractions, because we will need that when we are multiplying mixed numbers. Remember, if I have 3.5 and I want to change that to a mixed number, I multiply the denominator by the whole number and add the numerator. So 2 times 3 is 6, add 1 is 7, 7 out of 2. If we should look at another one, 8 3/4. If I want to change that to a mixed number, to an improper fraction, it's a mixed number at the moment. If I want to change it to an improper fraction, I multiply the denominator by the whole number and add the numerator. 4 times 8 is 32, add 3 is 35. So it's 35 over 4. So we need that in today's lesson. Let's look at this fraction. This is a half of a half, which is the same thing as saying a half times a half. Now, at first, we're going to look at a picture of what this would look like, and then I'm going to go into how we would work it if we were asked to do it in school. Now, let's look at a picture first. Here we have a shape, and I'm going to split it into a half to represent this half. So here I have a half. Now I want a half of a half, or a half times a half. Now this is what I'm going to do. That half that I have there, I'm going to split it in two because I want a half of a half. Now remember, when we're dealing with fractions, we're dealing with equal parts. So it means I would have to cut up the whole shape into equal parts. So here, I've cut up the whole shape. But remember, I'm asked for a half of a half. Okay, let's use a different color pen. That whole thing was a half. Now all I want is a half of a half. So I only want this half. So a half of a half. How many pieces are in there now? There are 1, 2, 3, 4 pieces. So that's 1 out of 4. So that is now 1 out of 4. So what we have here is 1 out of 4. So a half of a half is 1 out of 4. So let's go back at what we did. Here, we have a half. So that's a half. And I'm asked for a half of a half, or a half times a half. So I only want a half of this. So because I only want a half of the half, I'm not going to shade in the half that I need. I only want a half of a half. But remember, when we're dealing with fractions, we're also dealing with equal parts. So the whole shape I'm now going to put into equal parts. That half of a half is now turning out to be 1 out of 4. So a half of a half is the same thing as 1 out of 4. Now let's look at how we would work that if we were giving it on to work without a diagram. All you would do is multiply the numerator by the numerator, which is 1, and denominator by the denominator, which is 4. So we have 1 out of 4. So a half of a half, or a half times a half, is 1 out of 4. And here's a picture of what is really going on. So when we're multiplying fractions here, we multiply the numerator by the numerator and the denominator by the denominator. Let us look at another question by looking at a diagram of what's happening. And then again, we work it the way you would have been working it in your book. Here we have 2/3 of 1/5, which is the same thing as saying 2/3 times 1/5. So 2/3 of 1/5 is the same thing as saying 2/3 times 1/5. So of is replaced by the sign times. Now, what does that look like as a picture? So let's look. So first thing we're going to do is to find 1/5. So I'm going to cut this shape up into 5 equal parts. Now, remember that I'm just using my free hand to draw this, so it might not look like 5 equal parts. But we're going to assume that it is 5 equal parts. Let me make this one a little bit smaller. So here we have 5 equal parts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Now I'm asked to find 2/3 of 1/5. So the first thing I'm going to find is 1/5. That's 1/5, because that's 1 out of 5. So that's 1/5. But I'm asked to find 2/3 of 1/5. So this is the 1/5. I'm asked to find 2/3 of it. So what I'm going to do with that 1/5 is to cut it up into 3 parts, because 2/3 mean that the denominator tells me it's cut up into 3 parts. 1. So here, I've cut that up into 3 parts. Okay, let's just make that a little bit brighter to show you that it has cut up into 3 parts. I want 2/3 of 1/5. So of that 1/5, I only want 2/3 of it. So I'm going to shade in 2/3 of it. So I've shaded in 2/3 of it. Now, remember that when we're dealing with fractions, we're dealing with equal parts. So if I've cut up this part of it, it means I have to cut up the whole shape into that equal parts. So now this picture that is shaded, that 2/3 of 1/5, is now going to be 1, 2 out of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. Is now going to be 2 out of 15. Right? So 2/3 of 1/5 is equal to 2 out of 15. Without drawing the shape, how do we do that? 2 times 1 is 2. 3 times 5 is 15. So again, to multiply fractions, we multiply the numerator by the numerator and the denominator by the denominator. And this would give you a picture of what is going on. Now let's look at multiplying mixed numbers. Now let's first look at a picture. So here we have 2.5 times 1 and 1/5. Doesn't matter which we start with, but I'm going to be starting with the 2.5. So I have 1 whole cake, another 1 whole cake, and I only want a half of that one. So that's 2.5 times 1. So 1, 1 and a half. So 1, 2, 2.5 times 1. So 1 set of 2.5. But it asks us a 1 and 1/5 set. So I'm going to do another set of 2.5. I want all of that. I want all of that. So I want 1, 1, but I only want a half of this. Now, this is one set of 2.5, and that's another set of 2.5. I was not asked for 2.5 times 2. I was asked for 2.5 times 1 and 1/5. So that's 2.5 times 1. Now I need 2.5 times 1/5. So now I'm going to cut this cake up into 5 parts. So 1, different color pen, 1, 2, 3. So I have 5 parts there. I only want 1/5. So I only want 1 part. I'm going to cut this up into 5 pieces as well, because I only want 1/5. So I only want that part there. I'm going to cut this up into 5 parts as well, but I only want 1 of the 5 parts. So I want this 1 cake times 1/5, this 1 cake, only 1/5, and this one, remember here we have half of the cake right here. This shaded part is a half. At that half, I want to divide it into 5 parts, and I only want 1/5 of it. So now let's see how much cake that we have there. We have 1 full cake. We have another cake, so we're going to call that 2 cakes. So we have 2 full cakes. We have a half of a cake right there. We have 1/5, 1/5, and we have this now is cut up into 10 parts. So now we have here 1 out of 10. So we have a piece here, a piece here, a piece here, and a piece here. We need to find out how much all of that piece go together. Now, since that is cut up into 10 parts, let's cut this up into 10 parts as well. And let's cut this up into 10 parts as well. So that's 1 out of 10. This would have been, this 1/5 would have been 2 out of 10. So the 1/5 that was there, I've changed it to be equal to 2 out of 10. This was 1/5 that I've done, but I've changed it to 2 out of 10. So now that's 2 out of 10, 2 out of 10, 1 out of 10. This is a half. And because these are out of 10, let's just make this out of 10 as well. What do I do from 2 to get to 10? Times it by 5. So because I times the bottom by 5, I have to times the top by 5. So I have 5 out of 10. So I have 1 cake, 2 cake, that is 5 out of 10, 7 out of 10, 9 out of 10, 10 out of 10. So all the pieces together make 10 out of 10. Because here we have 2 out of 10, plus another 2 out of 10, plus another 1 out of 10, plus another 5 out of 10. That makes 10 out of 10. So the pieces that were there makes 10 out of 10, and 10 out of 10 is 1 whole. 10 out of 10 is 1 whole. So the pieces that were there make up another cake. So I have 1, 2, and the pieces that were there make up another cake. So my answer is 3. My answer is 3. What if I'm going to do that without a picture? Now remember, in a classroom, you are not expected to do that. I was just showing you a picture of what's going on. All you need to do in this case is to change the mixed number to an improper fraction. 2 times 2 is 4, add 1 is 5 out of 2. 5 times 1 is 5, add 1 is 6 out of 5. Now you multiply the numerator by the numerator. 6 times 5 is 30. The denominator by the denominator, 5 times 2 is 10. Here we have an improper fraction. We can change that improper fraction because 30 divided by 10 is 3. Nothing is left over. We only get a whole number of 3. So we got back our same answer there, which is 3. So today we looked at multiplying fractions. We looked at a picture or a diagram of what is really happening when we multiply fractions. But what I really wanted you to get is how do we write it if we're asked to write it in an exam or to write it in school. Now, so if I have 3 out of 6 times 1 out of 4, I multiply the numerator by the numerator. 3 times 1 is 3. 6 times 4 is 24. So I have 3 out of 24. If it is a case where it's a mixed number, 1 1/4 times 5 1/2, I changed the mixed number to improper fraction. 4 times 1 is 4, add 1 is 5. So we have 5 out of 4 times 2 times 5 is 10, add 1 is 11. So I have 11 out of 2. Once it's like that, I go back to multiply the numerator by the numerator, which in this case is 11 times 5, which is 55, and 4 times 2, which is 8. Now, this is an improper fraction. We can leave our answer like that, but we must read our question. If it asks you to leave in its simplest form, or ask you to leave it as a mixed number, you've got to change it. How many 8s can we get out of 55? 5 8 40, 6 8 48. So 7 8 56. So you can only get it 6 times. So it's going to be 6 times and 7 out of 8. So 6 times and 7 out of 8. So our answer is 6 and 7 out of 8. Now here's a question. I want you to have a go at this by yourself. The answer when you're finished should give you 3 and 17 out of 20. Have a go at that and see if you get that answer. All the best.
If you not have no education, people treat you like a